Let's bring you the news now. Now, the first batch of Nigerians fleeing the crisis in Sudan arrived at Abuja late yesterday and received 100,000 naira cash each for transportation to their various homes. The batch comprised a total of 376 persons. Minister of Humanitarian Affairs Sadiya Farouk received the evacuees at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport Abuja in the early hours of this morning. Besides the 100,000 naira cash, the minister disclosed that the returnees also got their gifts items. Farouk added that this were part of efforts being put in place to ensure that the returnees were settled in comfortably. 2 aircraft arrived at the airport from Egypt around 11:35 last night, bringing in a total of 376 Nigerians.
The Independent National Electoral Commission has said it has had a list of 774 persons arrested during the 2023 general election for various electoral offences, stating that an arrangement has been concluded with the Nigerian Bar Association for their prosecution. Speaking in Abuja yesterday at the National Human Rights Commission's monthly review forum for the 2023 elections, which focused on accountability for electoral crimes and human rights violations in elections, the Director of Litigation and Prosecution INEC Taminu Inua noted that the Electoral Commission was empowered by the provision of Section 145 of the Electoral Act 2022 to prosecute electoral offenders. He promised that the Commission would continue to put in its best to discharge its statutory power of electoral offences prosecution until the proposed body is established by law, insisting that this is the surest way of reducing the spate of brazen impunity with which electoral offences are committed.
Well, away from that, Labour Party's leadership crisis escalated further yesterday with the Julius Abure and Lamidia Papa groups holding separate national working committee meetings in Abuja and Bauchi. At the Abuja meeting, the Abure group warned that any elected member of the Labour Party found to be in support of a Papa risk having a seat declared vacant. It added that other members of the party that lend their loyalty to the suspended national chairman South could be expelled. But at the Bauchi NEC meeting, the Papa group announced they had pardoned Labour Party's presidential candidate for the February 25 election, Peter Obi, and his running mate Dati Baba Ahmed for attending last month's meeting of the NEC in Asaba, Delta State. The Labour Party leadership crisis broke out when the Federal High Court in Abuja barred the national chairman Abure and 3 others from parading themselves as national officers of the party.
And finally, on the national scene, Minister of Interior Rauf Aregbesola has accused corrupt officials of sabotaging efforts at sanitizing application and issuance of passports in the country. Inaugurating the Nigerian Immigration Service Passport Front Office in Oyo Town, Oyo State, the minister dismissed claim of shortage of the document, insisting the speculation is spearheaded by a few corrupt officials of the organization to extort applicants. He said the inauguration of the new facility was congest the Ibadan Center. According to him, one of the challenges facing the NIS as regards passport application are the few corrupt officials of the service who are undermining efforts at sanitizing the process. He added that the unscrupulous people were making the situation difficult by the day, and if people did not patronize them, they will not exist.
Let's leave the local scene and bring you stories from across the African continent, and we'll begin with Sudan, where the death of a well-known actress killed in crossfire in the north of Khartoum has shocked residents of Sudan's capital as they hear of more and more friends and relatives caught up in the fighting. Asia Abdel-Majid, who turned 80 last year, was famous for her theatre performances, first coming to prominence in the 1965 production of the play Pamsika. Her family say she was buried within hours of her shooting yesterday morning in the grounds of a kindergarten where she has been most recently working. It was too dangerous to take her to a cemetery. It is not clear who fired the shot that killed her in the clashes in the northern suburb of Bari, but paramilitary fighters of the Rapid Support Forces who are ensconced in their bases in residential areas across the country continue to battle the army, which tends to attack from the air.
Meanwhile, in Rwanda, at least 130 people have died after floods and landslides hit Rwanda's northern and western provinces, according to authorities. An official said the rain is one reason why so many died, as it hit at night when many people were asleep. Local Governor Francois Abitego said many houses had collapsed on people. He added that main roads in the area are not usable because of landslides. Rwanda's public broadcaster reports that the casualty numbers are expected to increase as flood waters continue to rise.
Now from around the world, Russia has accused Ukraine of attempting an overnight drone attack on the Kremlin with the aim of killing President Vladimir Putin, the most dramatic charge Moscow has leveled against Kiev since the war on its neighbor began. The allegation was made yesterday by the Russian government and reported by several state news agencies. Russian officials say Putin was not in the building at the time and there was no material damage to the Kremlin, as they warned of their right to retaliate. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky denied the accusations, saying his country had not attacked Moscow or its president.
Still on the foreign scene, Frank Bin, a retailer turned citizen journalist who documented the early outbreak of COVID-19 in Wuhan, has been released after more than 3 years of detention in China. Frank disappeared after sharing videos showing the on-the-ground situation in the central Chinese city, the epicenter of the original outbreak, as authorities sought to suppress information about the true extent of the unfolding global emergency. According to a family member who declined to be named due to concerns about repercussions, he was released on Sunday and was in Wuhan. Fang's health had suffered while in detention, where he had trouble eating and sleeping and had lost a bit of weight. His videos posted to social media in early 2020 laid bare the realities of the virus' deadly spread, contradicting the official narrative presented on China's tightly controlled state media.
Non-business President Muhammadu Buhari yesterday said that implementation of the Nigeria Agenda 2050 would ensure that Nigeria attains a per capita GDP of $33,220 per annum to place her among the top middle income economies globally by 2050. Buhari made this declaration in Abuja at the launch of the Nigeria Agenda 2050 and said that the project would achieve the following. First, create 165 million new jobs, reduce the number of Nigerians living in poverty to 2.1 million in 2050 from the 83 million estimated in 2020, and increase real gross domestic product growth by 7%. The launch of this project took place shortly before the kickoff of this week's Federal Executive Council meeting held at the council chambers of the Presidential Villa in Abuja.
And finally, in business news, the Senate yesterday approved the request of President Muhammadu Buhari to restructure the 22.7 trillion naira loans that the Central Bank of Nigeria advanced to the federal government under its Ways and Means policy. The Ways and Means provision allows the government to borrow from the Apex Bank if it needs short-term or emergency finance to fund delayed government expected cash receipts of fiscal deficits. The Buhari government said it sought the loans when the country started experiencing a significant shortfall in revenue. It said it relied heavily on the central bank to finance its expenditure programs via Ways and Means, whose balance as of December 19, 2022 stood at 22.7 trillion. The federal government has said it would repay the loan with securities such as treasury bills and bonds issuance. Buhari had last year asked the Senate to approve his proposal to scrutinize the loan, but to securitize, the loan, but the Red Chamber rejected the request, citing a lack of details. And that's a news update on the local, foreign, African, and business scene. We now move on to news stories from our judicial circuit.
Yes, news stories from our judicial circuit and the Nigerian Bar Association. This morning, we will be moving to Cross River State. The Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria in Cross River State has prevented the Election Petition Tribunal from sitting. State Chairman of JUSUN in Cross River State, Enya Egon Etoti, in an 8-point demand, said they had embarked on an indefinite strike action with effect from 2nd of May 2023. As a result, all their offices and the courts are under lock and key. Some of their demands include implementation of the constitutional provision of the financial autonomy of the judiciary, payment of the 66% balance of consolidated judiciary salary structure, that conjures the long overdue staff promotion, implementation of promotion benefit across board, re-inclusion of JUSHN staff excluded from state government's payroll since 2014, as well as non-payment of salaries till date, amongst others. And now to Rivers State. The Rivers State government has commenced the trial of 4 suspected cultists who allegedly terrorized part of Ogoni communities in the state. The suspects are arraigned on counts bordering on conspiracy, kidnapping, cultism, murder, and possession of illegal firearms. The defendants were said to have conspired, kidnapped, and killed a pharmacist, Moluna, Sunday, despite collecting ransom from his family. Speaking from the witness box, the wife of the late pharmacist, Pretty Sunday Newa, told the court that the 4 defendants deceived her husband that they were not going to kill him, but only took him into the bush for oath-taking, despite pleas from her. She said her husband never came back alive, but was found inside a well in a forest within the community with his manhood, head, and his intestine taken away by the defendants and others now at large. The trial judge, my Lord Justice Augusta Kingsley Chukwu, after listening to the prosecution witness, adjourned the case to May 16th, 23rd, 27th, June 4th, 11th, 18th, and July 25th for the continuation of trial cross-examination. The National Assembly has directed the clerk of the National Assembly to transmit a Constitution Alteration Bill number 20 to the President Muhammadu Buhari for assent in line with the provision of the Authentication Act. The bill seeks to ensure uniformity in the retirement age and pension rights of judicial officers of superior courts of record by extending their retirement age from 65 years to 70 years. The proposal was part of the Constitutional Alteration Bill transmitted to State Houses of Assembly for concurrence last year, 2022, but not part of the 35 that secured the required approval of 24 out of 36 states' assemblies. Deputy Senate President Ovie Omoagege, in a motion, informed his colleagues during plenary on Tuesday that Sokoto State House of Assembly has approved the Constitution Alteration Bill number 20 and forwarded each resolution to the National Assembly. The Deputy Senate President said that with the approval of the Sokoto State Assembly, the bill on the uniform retirement age of judicial officers has met the provisions of Section 9 sub 2 of the Constitution for passage. Recall that the Parliament had earlier transmitted 35 constitution alteration bills to the President for assent, out of which 19 were rejected and 16 signed into law. Sort of relief to our judicial officers now. They now have 5-year extension added to their years of retirement. Well, we'll see if that would also better the lot of other people within the lower courts, which is the the magistrates and the courts of lower courts jurisdiction, courts of lower jurisdictions that are like the magistrates and the customary courts.
Yes,
so that brings us to the end of our updates from the judiciary.
All right, for more stories on Eyewitness Reports, do visit our website at www.lawfmng.com and follow us on socials. On Facebook, we're at Law FM 103.9, Instagram at Law FM Radio, and Twitter at Law FM_radio. The Law FM Morning Show will return with a newspaper review segment in a bit. Do stay with us.
Law FM 103.9. You want more? I want it. This station has got you covered. 103.9 Law FM. And discover what you can do right now.
All the youths in Nigeria, let me assure you that no matter what you are going through, the future is bright. You are the future. You have the power to create create the future. Don't let anybody use you as gangster or thug or violent political followers. Just stay within the law, and by the grace of God, Nigeria will be better. I'm Olufemi Pedro, and you are listening to Law FM 103.9 for knowledge and entertainment.
What's up, people? It's your boy Goya Man. You want to bamba? You want to chill with the big boys? If you want to chill with the big boys, keep listening to Law FM 103.9 for knowledge and entertainment.
Up next, a dive into the papers on the Law FM Morning Show.
This is the station for knowledge and entertainment, Law 103.9. Good morning again and welcome to the Life and Morning Show. We're glad to have you there. Of course, you met the cast already if you haven't. Kingsley Bass is my name.
Beatrice here.
And Felix Uzoma.
Let's get down to business, shall we? We've got the cover pages for you, headlines from there. Let's begin with the Punch newspaper this morning. The lead story here says 26 days to go. Outrage. Senate approves what is 22.7 trillion naira extra budgetary spending. As two riders to this: fresh borrowing from central bank, illegal, suspicious as NECA, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, as well as economists speaking. Now, 22.7 trillion extra budgetary spending to raise public debt to 69 trillion naira. That's the second rider to that story. But away from that, Agenda 2050, federal government projects $33,000 per capita gross domestic product. And away from that, All Progressives Congress National Working Committee fails to zone National Assembly leadership seats. Police arrest or show twins for cultism. And Senate proposes live jail for unlawful explosives makers. You find that on page 19 of the Punch today. But let's go top of the page. The Punch newspaper this Thursday to Sudan. 376 stranded Nigerians airlifted from Egypt. Federal government disconnects discourse from national grid over debt. And to strike-related matters reported on the cover page. Resident doctors say federal government's threat gnawing. And that's what the cover page of the Punch newspaper is reporting this morning.
Alright, the one that really strikes me or stands out on that front page is Nigeria to spend next 40 years repaying controversial 23.72 trillion naira. And the Senate yesterday abandoned its previous hardline stance and approved the conversion to a 40-year bond of the 23.72 trillion naira federal government's unappropriated expenditure funded by the Central Bank of Nigeria through its Ways and Means window. President Muhammad Buhari last year wrote the National Assembly to approve the amount alongside a fresh 1 trillion naira it planned to take from the window. And the bond conversion, which would ultimately move the amount on the balance sheet of the CBN to the Debt Management Office of Management, has a 3-year moratorium. The Buhari administration has disclosed. The Senate and the House of Representatives had several times turned down the approval for lack of proper explanation on how proceeds of the loans will be spent, but that has now been approved. Nigeria is set to spend another 40 years repaying loans. That is a long time. Some children right now are going to grow up to be elders before these loans will be paid off. What do you both make of this?
Yeah, except we have a debt cancellation like we had for the Paris Club debt cancellation during Obasanjo's period. I mean, we are in for it. It's like a big pot of soup right now. And the funny thing is, this administration is going. Why is it necessary now to borrow? Why do you want to give the incoming administration, you want to overburden the incoming administration? Another thing we should also well realize is that this debt burden, as at 2022 fourth quarter, we know the DMO, that's the Debt Management Office, says Nigeria's debt, debt is about 46 trillion naira, if I'm not mistaken, and now we have about 2 trillion added to it. That comes to about 60, I think 69, from what you had read. It just shows that we have a penchant for continuous borrowing, like a leaking tap that you can't just close. So it's really something that calls for concern, and it should not continue. That's just my take on it.
Well, as we have this conversation, I think it's important to note that as regards this 22.7 trillion ways and means conversation from the Central Bank of Nigeria, this, we probably need to have an extended conversation as regards this. That's because this one is not necessarily about what the government or what the federal government is looking, the presidency now more like is looking to collect, but what they have collected already, right?
Repay.
Yeah, they're looking to repay the loan,
right?
They've collected already, and maybe another thing that needs to critically be looked at is the fact that they've crossed the threshold, the 5% threshold for borrowing, and that's a major conversation. If it was just crossing to maybe 10% or 20%, maybe that's pardonable, but they've crossed to over 100%, and that's a cause for worry. And maybe that's why the likes of NECA, the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, particularly talking about this. But hey, we'll see how things go. This may sound alarming to say that generations to come would have to
4 decades. It's a long time.
Have to pay these loans, but it is what it is.
Yes, so on the Guardian newspaper front page, we have on the top left-hand corner, National Assembly leadership, TINUBU defers zoning decision after May 29th. TINUBU defers zoning decision after May 29th. And on the right-hand side, you have Project Refund, I owe you nothing, TINUBU tells Wiki. On the front page, we have Nigeria to spend next 40 years repaying controversial 23.72 trillion naira CBN overdraft to federal government. We also had that on the Punch newspaper. I think it's a major story on virtually all the major newspapers that we have. Still on the Guardian newspaper, you have corrupt officials sabotaging passport issuance, Aregbo Shola alleges. We have Nasima, CPPE laments worsening state of the economy. Senate cannot stop demolition at Lagos airport. We see that on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. Also, despite probe, official corruption undermining building control enforcement. You see that on page 4 of the Guardian newspaper. And finally, at the bottom of the Guardian newspaper, you see police officers' families to evacuate 25 barracks for renovation. Police officers' families to vacate 25 barracks for renovation. And that's all we have on the front page of the Guardian newspaper.
So many interesting stories on the Guardian this morning. To vacate, how many now? 25
barracks.
Where would the occupants or residents of these barracks be living in the meantime while they're carrying out renovations?
So it's just like the poem "Homeless, Not Hopeless." I was saying the Nigerian police force. I was just saying a video yesterday of police buildings in Ghana. See very beautiful structure, fine place to stay. I mean, you just would want to be a police officer, but go to our barracks in Nigerian police barracks. I don't want to start mentioning names, but you just ask yourself, is this
right? Let's see what this caller thinks about it. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Mr. B. Good morning. Mr. B.
Good morning to you.
Master, let's hear from you.
Yeah, it's very, very pertinent. Those barracks, like you were saying, what would they do? If you go there, if you go to any of the police barracks, the fighting alone, you will not enter that place. If you are in Keja, and incite the police there, that section there where they live from the outside, you will not even like to enter there. If you go to Yonipaja, I don't know why they are so dirty. When the community say this, honestly. If they say, yes, let me do that. But then, they will curtail their dirtiness.
Curtail their dirtiness. So would it be able to have a talk with the residents on how to keep their environment clean?
I don't know. I still cannot stay in their apartment. You can't stay in the environment. I will lie you, honestly.
But let's say it in a better way. The purpose of the renovation, it's a renovation, so it's like giving it a facelift. Don't you think that it's necessary, Mazi?
It is because they have defaced the house, the building. Totally, they have defaced it. That's the essence of them defacing and then give it a facelift. And that's why I say they should make sure that they incorporate in them the habit of cleanliness.
Right.
If they want to be taught, let them be taught, because they cannot withstand it, Mr. Man, honestly. That's my own.
All right, thank you so much for your contribution. I think it's not just in the renovation, but what happens afterwards, the maintenance, so it doesn't be defaced again, to get another facelift in the soonest time possible.
Yeah, I think, and this would come, and I say this respectfully, and that's the fact that I believe that we do have a culture of negligence, especially when it comes to maintenance. Aside that, even aside public facilities, we just have a problem, a wrong culture to keep things clean. Generally, people drive past expressways and they're throwing things out the window, and you're wondering what's going on, and you complain when it rains and the drainages are flooded. Right? Talking about this story, I think it's important to just state maybe the affected barracks, right? A few of them, just so that we put things in perspective. Let's mention a few of them. One is Jet Police Barracks, Balinde Highway Police Barracks, Keja, K9 Police Barracks, Kefi Street, Ikoyi, Falamo Police Barracks, Bar Beach Police Barracks, also Mopol 20 Barracks, Women Police Barracks, Mopol 2 Police Barracks, also on Kefi Street, Mounted Troop, that's around Ribadu, and then Queen's Barracks as well. There are a few other barracks, of course, spread across Lagos State where this is gonna happen. So, and you need to see pictures from these barracks. It's unimaginable.
It really is a deplorable situation, to be honest. I mean, what I want ultimately is for the renovation to really stand the test of time, and just other people that are in there, resident in there, should not deface the place again. And there's just a maintenance culture, something that is more sustainable to ensure that this facelift actually stays for a while.
Why do these people stay for 1 month? All right, that's another one. They've been issued this notice to vacate the accommodation spaces, following the plan to reconstruct 25 police barracks. Where do they go to? What happens to their families? Some of them have like 7 kids or more. What happens to them?
That's a question begging for answer. But we'll leave it at that and see how it goes.
Yeah, speaking of matters surrounding our security personnel in Nigeria, Edo State Police is set to train officers in weapon handling and professionalism. You find that contained on the Punch newspaper this morning. The Edo State Police Command has commenced the training of officers of the command on weapon handling and other activities. The commander, Mopol 5 Benin ACP Habib Rabiu, who is in charge of the training, said the exercise was to enhance the capacity of the officers and professionalism in their day-to-day activities. He said the training centers of physical training, handling of arms, and hazard maneuvering will strengthen the force in responding to issues and also end accidental discharges. And this really takes me back to some cases we've had on super cases where there are some accidental discharges as such, and the police officer was found culpable and the likes. So yeah, good to know that Edo State is set to train police officers in weapon handling and all-round professionalism.
Yeah, absolutely. I may not really be versed in this, but I know that importantly, the police, their training tells them that when you take out a gun, like when you return the gun, you ought to remove the cartridge. You ought to remove every bullet or live ammunition inside of it. Most times you see that these things don't usually happen, or you don't do what is proper. Even before you go out for operations, you don't put your bullets on ready to shoot.
All those checks and balances.
Exactly.
Now, is it negligence, or is it that they forget to do so? What exactly can we allude it to?
So that is why this training is important. So we need training and retraining.
Right.
Yeah, so from the Vanguard newspaper, the front page, once again, we are looking at the top right-hand corner of the Vanguard newspaper says 10th National Assembly, we are working on consensus arrangement. That's APC. On oil, we have Nigeria, 4 others account for over 80% of Africa's output. Well, would you really say that we have seen the effect of that output? Well, the answer is left to you, because in law we say res ipsa loquitur. I mean, the fact speaks for itself. Can we really say we are beneficiaries? Lobby me for refund. I don't owe you. Tinubu tells Wiki. That's on still on Vanguard newspaper, page 10. NLC TUC kicks as Senate OKs FGs. That's federal government 22.7 trillion naira ways and means. It's shocking. NLC approval creates room for suspicion. That's what TUC is saying. We approved advances to avert government shutdown. That's what the Senate President is saying. Ahmad Lawan says move will allow National Assembly consider pending 2022 supplementary budget. And then we also have the front page picture here is the president's signing of the 2050 agenda plan for Nigeria. You can pick up the Vanguard newspaper to get all the stories. But another interesting story we should pick from the Punch newspaper is again, Labour Party disowns a Papa-led faction, blames APC governors, National Working Committee members.
Right, so many stories in various newspapers this morning, really interesting ones, and yes, we just want you to pick up the relevant papers and you'll be brought up to speed with the stories therein. But looks like I'm supposed to start one interesting one again for us before we go.
One of the honorable members from I think this is Kano State now, Doguwa, says my 4 wives, 28 children, prove I will succeed as speaker. So it appears now that qualification for speaker
depends on how many children.
How many children? How many? So it's like the saying that charity begins at home. If I'm able to manage 4 wives and I can manage 28 children, we don't know how successful that has been done. But however, he is saying that if he can do that, then he's qualified to be the speaker.
Wow.
Well, that's left for the honorable members elect to choose.
Interesting times indeed in our history as Nigerians, but this is the same lawmaker who's standing trial for alleged murder. We'll see how things go as regards the speakership position in the 10th Assembly.
Yeah, and that's why we had to draw the curtains on the newspaper review segment right here on the Law FM Morning Show, a terrific Thursday edition. You don't want to touch that dial for any reason, because we are set to hit our discussion segment where we bring you wholesome discussions on matters that concern us as Nigerians. Keep it dialed, tune in and locked on. This is Law FM 103.9, your only law radio station.
FM 103.9.
Let's talk. Let's converse. Let's have fun.
It doesn't get better than this. Does it?
103.9 Low FM.
Strap yourself in, because we're set up, switched on, and ready to go
on Low FM 103.9.
Here is an opportunity for you to find answers to all your medical related questions. Join Dr. Gibbs, a legit therapist consultant, psychiatrist, and health policy expert on the Legit Therapist with Dr. Jibs of the Freudian Center every Wednesday from 10 to 10:45 a.m. on Law FM 103.9. For more information, visit www.freudiancenter.com. Center spelled as CENTRE or call 0809 600 0075 or 0811 887 9443. You can also follow across social media at Freudian_Center, the legit therapist with Dr. Jibs on Law FM 103.9.
All doctors to the ER.
For this Naija wey we dey so, say you no hold cash no mean say wahala dey o. You wan send money to Male for villa, just use Momo. You wan buy recharge card or data, just use Momo. You wan pay for market wey you buy, just use Momo. You fit use Momo run plenty things without cash, as long as you get Momo account. No cash, no wahala, and e dey easy to open o. Just dial *671# to open Momo account. Set your PIN, transfer money from your bank account inside your Momo account, make you fit dey pay for anything, send and receive money sharp because life is simple with Momo.
Hold on tight.
I'm Olufemi Pedro.
I'm Omoyele Showore.
My name is Honorable Hakeem Dixon.
This is Honorable Adekunle Akobada.
I'm Dele Momodu, and you are listening to Law FM 103.9 for knowledge and entertainment. Your only law radio station.
And discover what you can do right now.
All the youths in Nigeria, let me assure you that no matter what you are going through, the future is bright. You are the future. You have the power to create the future. Don't let anybody use you as gangster or thug or violent political followers. Just stay within the law, and by the grace of God, Nigeria will be better. I'm Olufemi Pedro, and you are listening to Law FM 103.9 for knowledge and entertainment.
You go charge am, abi you go bill am.
So now say me talk one day saying one show a papa saying don't become man. Small time begin one the old man o. The old man say shock, come say for my own pikin, I got bend down. Small blow like this when he position say won't give am as manual reset the thing land wash from my maker face when he wants separate fight.
Eventually
2 seconds, my let off. I won't reason this matter like this now.
We are followers rule peace on top charge or bail, because every weekday from 7 to 7:30 p.m. na the kind matter we dey handle. Join Wari and Polo on top charge or bail for Law FM 103.9.
You go charge am, abi you go bill am.
What do we do at dawn on Saturday mornings? Cup of coffee? A cold shower? Go for a run? Well, some people do that, others listen to the Saturday morning show for premium gist, facts, tips, awesome tunes, cutting across everything. Sports, music, entertainment, relationship, health, law with Beatrice and the DJs every Saturday from 7 a.m. So what are we doing this Saturday morning? Playing with what you want to hear.
Soul Smooth Jams.
Blues that serenade with rhythm. It's R&B Tuesdays from 9 to 10 with DJ U on Low FM 103.9.
Law FM 103.9 is extending a promo package to small and medium-sized businesses who are looking to advertise their various products. For just 50,000 naira, small-scale businesses can get spot placement 3 times daily for 3 weeks. For medium-scale businesses at a round figure of 100,000 naira, you get spot placement 3 times daily every weekday for 3 weeks and a 5-minute recorded live session.
For further inquiry, please call 091 610 22372. Again, 091 610 22372.
Law FM 103.9, the station for knowledge and entertainment.
Sports just got better. For in-depth analysis on the world's biggest sporting stories like basketball,
LeBron James with no regard for human life.
Football,
Roma,
and so much more. Join Olo the Master Planner and the Law FM Sport Crew every weekday from 6:15 to 7 p.m. right here on Law FM 103.9. Enjoy sports like never before.
For some of the greatest hits, throwback tunes, trendy, classy. Catch the vibe with the hottest and seasoned professional mixers the law has to offer.
Everything that kills me.
With DJ U and DJ Callis every day of the week. 103.9 Law FM.
Law 103.9, welcome back from that break. It's time to get to the conversation focus for today. We did tell you at the beginning of the conversation this morning that we'll be talking first about the moves by the federal government to return Nigerians stranded in the war-torn city of Khartoum in Sudan, and indeed the entire country, Sudan, at the moment. Well, after 7 days or maybe more of assurances by the federal government, the Nigerian evacuees, at least the first batch, finally arrived Abuja last night, about 11:35 last night. We hear 376 Nigerians arrived at the capital, that's the federal capital territory, Abuja. Let's talk about this and examine these moves by the federal government, what they're doing. Is the federal government doing enough to return Nigerians stranded in Sudan at the moment? And the process or the processes, what they're currently doing right now, are we going about this entire thing the right way? Lots of questions begging answers. And to talk to us about this morning is a political commentator, Charles Olojede, who joins us via phone. Good morning to you and welcome to the Law FM Morning Show.
Good morning, Kingsley. Nice to be on the program.
Good morning, Charles. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Charles. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
fantastic. Okay, so 376 Nigerians successfully evacuated from Sudan and given 100,000 now from reports, each of them to return to their various homes. All right, there's transportation and of course little pocket money, to get them, to get them home. What's your assessment of these moves? The efforts made by the federal government to ensure that Nigerians return home safely from Sudan?
Well, I think overall we had some missed steps along the way. That we have been able to recover those missteps, and that are going to move from this point onwards. Some of the earlier things that could have caused problems to where we found ourselves were the multiple agencies of government involved in the exit, and the fact that there are some communication gaps among these agencies. It is difficult among the four. Is the leading? Who is there? There is never national emergency. Do we have a national emergency? Yes, we have one. There is one, that is Diaspora Commission. So are the people involved Nigerians in diaspora? The answer is yes. We have the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. Do we have a humanitarian affairs issue at stake? The answer is yes. Then there is to achieve that goal. But I think that did not happen, or it did not start to happen early enough. So there were a lot of issues. For example, a very good example is the fact that as at the time the first batch of Nigerians arrived at the Egyptian border, there were no clearance for them to enter Egypt. And that is absolutely unacceptable. There should have been certain level of diplomatic engagement we should have known what Egypt wants for them to allow our people to come in. And it is not at that point where our people and other people, there were actually about 7,000 human beings at that entrance, and they didn't allow anybody to come in. But the question is, what should have facilitated that? The kind of engagement would have allowed us to know, oh, this is what Egypt wants. And we would have provided those things, and it would have been a smoother sail into Egypt, rather than keeping those people at the Sudan-Egyptian border for maybe a couple of days. They were there. So it didn't go well initially, but maybe we have picked up from the mistakes, and it's likely to run more smoothly right now.
Alrighty, that's as regards that. There were, allegations of discrimination, as to the persons who would be evacuated, certain persons. There were thoughts that, as a matter of fact, we saw videos also of persons of certain ethnic extraction claiming that they were left behind, and certain groups were taken, and also at some point, I think that was last week or thereabouts, the chairman and chief executive of NIDCOM, Bike Arewa, did tweet about the fact that they used the states of origin method to evacuate, to load the buses. What's your thoughts about this, and how do you think this have generally impacted the moves by the federal government to return Nigerians?
Okay, when you have let's go back to when we had the first 13 buses or thereabout. The buses were not going to be able to carry everybody at a time. So which means you must have a basis for determining who are the people that will go in first. We did not have a situation in which maybe there were tally numbers, or there was a queue in place already that could have facilitated that. So the people who are on ground must determine how exactly do I determine. I have 13 buses there. I have a crowd that will require 40 buses. So if I have only 13, what should be the basis for entry? So for me, if you had asked me, vulnerability should have been the primary consideration before anything. So if there are people who are old, if there are people who have some disabilities, or people who are sick or feeble, those will be the ones I would have loved to first move, and then I can now apply whatever basis. So what Abika was trying to say was that they use state of origin. It's not. It's a very challenging business to use, because I can imagine the kind of protest that will come from people in Zamfara if you use a state. It means that the state that are A will come in first, and the state they say like Zamfara, which is Z, will wait until every other person has entered before they have the privilege of entering into those forces. So there has to be a basis. But where I have a problem is if, in spite of this basis, you now have I read something that said, some people were asked to disembark from the bus. What formed the basis for asking those people to disembark from the bus? Is it that they have flouted the order that was set before people enter the bus, or were they being profiled ethnically? I would not want to take a position based on, I saw a video too of someone saying that, but I won't want to take a firm position based on that. But what that person has helped us to do is to raise an issue that requires investigation. Did it happen? And if it happened, you can be sure it won't be that guy alone. There will be other people that got affected, and like the Bible will say, from the mouth of one or two or three people will confirm the truth. So by the time you see that, and others who witness it, they will tell you exactly what happened. So that matter should not be allowed to just go under the carpet. It requires an investigation so that if people have done wrong, they should be called to order and to account. We cannot have ethnic profiling issues within Nigeria and then go outside again and go and exhibit it. Now, what's the problem?
All right, as regards that, just before Council Felix coming with his question, as regards the profiling, I think unconfirmed reports have it at the moment that the federal government is focused on returning students, to Nigeria first, and again, that's unconfirmed. We'll see how that goes. From the 376 also who arrived in Nigeria last night, we hear that preferences were given when they were loading them on buses, to leave the airport. Preferences were given to ladies, to women, to just show, that vulnerability status you mentioned, and the rest, which is a good thing. Yeah. So, Council Felix has a few questions for you.
Yes. So another question we need to interrogate is the issue of the coordination. Initially, we heard they are going to use buses, and then buses got stranded. Then we started airlifting people from Egypt. Next time, we want to get your view as to how best do you think such an event or an occurrence like this should have been properly, handled.
We have a firm approach that is even probably documented. Even if we need to legislate about it, let it be legislated. Let us know the hierarchies of those agencies in championing issue of this type, because it may not be the last that we're going to see, so that it is clear who has responsibility for what. That was not what we saw in the last situation. Then let's also be conscious of the fact that it is not exactly one shoe fits all. It is a war situation, and I saw variants. I saw variants of approach by different countries. Let's take the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom has a military
Charles,
base.
please, I might need to crave your indulgence to just give us a second to explore these various approaches you're talking about by various other nations. We need to go pay the bills, and when we return, we'll be speaking with you again. Please do stay with us. Thank you.
From where it is to where it should be.
You are listening to Law FM 103.9. Don't touch that dial.
For this Naija wey we dey so, say you no hold cash no mean say wahala dey o. You wan send money to Male for villa, just use Momo. You wan buy recharge card or data, just use Momo. You wan pay for market wey you buy, just use Momo. You fit use Momo run plenty things without cash, as long as you get Momo account. No cash, no wahala, and e dey easy to open o. Just dial *671# to open Momo account. Set your PIN, transfer money from your bank account inside your Momo account, make you fit dey pay for anything, send and receive money sharp because life is simple with Momo.
When you listen to this station, you learn about your rights. You discover the law in ways you never imagined. You know why? Because we broadcast in your interest.
It's a problem that we are all experiencing in the country. Different parts of the country, the same thing is happening. So who do we call on to? Who do we hold responsible?
We impact knowledge.
If the grid is unable to shed the load that it ought to, it could also result in the collapse of the national grid.
Call it what you may, but we are here to stay. The law was never biased, so why should it be now? To every individual, we are Law FM 103.9.
There are no internal electricity
This is Law FM 103.9.
Let's talk. Let's converse. Let's have fun.
It doesn't get better than this.
103.9 Law FM.
Get closer.
To the station for knowledge and entertainment. Law FM
103.9.
Where we play your music your way all day, every day.
on Law FM.
On Law FM
103.9.
Where we take your business from where it is to where it should be.
You are listening to Law FM 103.9. Don't touch that dial.
There's only one station that captivates you with the law. Law FM 103.9.
Minutes gone past 9 a.m. this beautiful morning. Still a terrific Thursday, of course, right here on your favorite dial, your only Law radio station, 103.9 Law FM is still the discussion segment right here on the Law FM morning show. And of course, we still have our guest with us in person of Charles Olojede, a political commentator. And today we are x-raying the evacuation process of Nigerians from Sudan, the story and the journey so far, and what the way forward is. Thank you so much, Charles, for being here, staying with us.
Just before the break, I was trying to discuss the various approaches that we saw with different nations.
Yes, please.
America, for example, America has a very close tie, including military ties with Saudi Arabia. They probably even have American warship on the Mediterranean then, Saudi Arabia. So America evacuated via Saudi Arabia. Britain, the UK has a military base in Cyprus. They flew in, picked about 300 of their citizens and some other foreigners were included as well, and they flew back to Cyprus. From Cyprus, they will make arrangements to airlift whoever they want to airlift back to the UK. In the case of China rolled in a warship with Navy, and they came and evacuated their citizens from Sudan via the Navy and the warship. So it's a mix of different things, and you could also see elements of war approach to the evacuation. So you're seeing the UK evacuating to a military base. You're seeing America leveraging on its Saudi Arabia military. They've been there forever. America has been in Saudi Arabia forever. You've also seen those elements of military approach were there. Then you also now have some other countries who did not use military approach. Ghana evacuated too. Some other African countries. But when I look at what some of these people were evacuating, there were 3 countries that evacuated about 100 people, and I'm asking myself, so maybe it's about 33 or 40 people that are from each of those countries. It is slightly different from what Nigeria had on ground. The 5,500 number that we've been brandishing as Nigerians are even largely students. There is a strong history between Nigeria and Sudan, and it is estimated that the population of Nigerians and Sudanese of Nigerian descent will be anything between 5 and 7 million in Sudan. So Sudan is a base that has become more or less like a second home for a lot of Nigerians, especially from the northern part, right from the days when people were riding camel to Mecca. When they go through Sudan, some of them stay in in Sudan. Some of them will even stay there for like a year to work and then move on to Saudi Arabia. When they are coming back from Mecca, they do the same. Some of them stay there and never even move further to Nigeria. So Nigeria has probably the largest non-indigenous population in Sudan. That is why the number of people we have to evacuate was also very huge. However, despite the fact that it was huge, if we had had a better coordination, if we had had a champion in front, and you don't have a situation in which 4 different agencies are saying 4 different things, I believe we will have been able to evacuate much smoother than what we had.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Charles. You know, the other thing that, yes, you've spoken about it, by in passing, but we need to really address this issue of interagency disagreement. We see this as well in our security sector. You see the police, the EFCC, the ICPC, who don't even know which is which. We are supposed to go after this person, so it appears that there is an interagency rivalry. There's NIDCOM, there's NEMA, which is there's NEMA, there's Foreign Affairs Ministry, all of them working together. It appears, in quotes now, they're supposed to be working together to ensure that this thing is properly coordinated. We never hear of this story with other countries. Why is Nigeria's case always different? How do we ensure that things like this do not happen in future? Because of course, it would. We are not purveyors of fighting between other countries, but really we cannot stop fighting between different countries. When it happens, what are the measures on ground to ensure that things like this do not repeat itself? Because it's really embarrassing. You talked about US evacuating their citizens. We never heard of maybe one agency in charge of emergency had issues with another agency. So how do we ensure that things like this do not happen?
We need to engage. When out is over, when we have done this, then in-house we need to have proper engagement. I think even the National Assembly is already looking in this direction. I think Femi Gbajabiamila summoned some of this leadership of those agencies to have a discussion, because any curious observer will have noted that there was interagency communication gap in what happened. No or championship of the cause, and a very important cause for that matter. It also goes down to our foreign policy. In my opinion, I may be wrong. I'm not a foreign affairs expert. It looks to me as if our military years, we had stronger foreign policies than we have today in the Fourth Republic, which is a civilian regime. A democracy, multi-party democracy for 24 years. But you can't even really pinpoint the direction of our foreign policy. The clarity of the works that the military did in Liberia, in Sierra Leone, is a firm confirmation of the possibility that we indeed were better from a foreign policy perspective in the military days than what we have seen with the civilians. And it shouldn't be so. One would have thought that in a democracy, we will appreciate our foreign policy more strongly than the military junta would. So hopefully, the next administration will take a look and will review all these kind of incidences, and will be able to fashion out a stronger foreign policy. It is foreign policy that will make it possible for China to roll a warship to the port of Sudan to evacuate. It is relationship, it is foreign policy that will make America be able to evacuate a citizen via Saudi Arabia the way it did. It is foreign policy that made UK have a military base in Cyprus. So all those things we have to have a rethink. The kind of relationship that will make Egypt open door to us, the kind of relationship that will make Ethiopia, pander to us when we ask for help. we have to be able to get to that point for subsequent events that may be similar to this.
Alrighty, let's talk security-related issues as regards this evacuation process. Here's exactly what I mean. I'm not sure. There are no reports out there at the moment as regards, the involvement of security forces in this. I'm talking the secret police and the intelligence and national intelligence agency as regards this. But what's your take on examining and debriefing this persons, profiling them as they return? We know that at the moment 376 of them arrived late last night. They've been given some monies according to reports to return to their various homes, and that is that right now. Well, there are no talks as to, of course it's not expected that this is going to be made public, but what's your take on that, and what thought do you have for the federal government as regards critically profiling this 376 and the many more to come in coming days?
Well, the reality is that the profiling should have started way back in Sudan. America did not carry all the American citizens, well, I hope you know. In fact, none of those nations that we're talking about took away all their citizens. You have to do a profiling to know who you are picking. That is where it starts from. One of the reasons why Egypt disallowed people from entering into Egypt was because Egypt insisted that I want to know who are these people that are coming into my territory. They insisted on profiling. They wanted all of them to have travel papers, maybe it's a passport or whatever their country can provide them as travel papers. They wanted escorts. They want these people, as you are entering into Egypt, I want to know what aircraft are picking you, what are the details of the aircraft, and who is following you, who is the official of government following you from this place directly to that aircraft, so that you leave my country. I don't want a single one left behind in Egypt. That was one of the problems we had at the Egyptian border. So if we had missed out along the way, if we did not profile in Sudan, we had a second opportunity in Egypt when the Egyptians were doing their own. If we missed out on that as well, it means that we will have had to do it in Nigeria. But I don't want to believe that we missed out of the opportunity at the Egyptian border. I think while people were waiting there for a couple of days and the Egyptian people did their own profiling, it would have been an opportunity for Nigeria also to do a profiling, or at least work together with the Egyptian authorities in the course of the profiling. Otherwise, we might have an animal on court.
All right, thank you so much, Charles. And speaking of profiling and having relevant travel papers, there were actually reports also that some of the buses deployed to transport the stranded students to Egypt, they were reportedly hijacked by non-documented Nigerians residing in Sudan. Now, these undocumented migrants are doing all sorts of menial jobs. They came to the university and said they should get on the bus first before the students. So what happens to those undocumented people? Would we say because they didn't have legal or relevant travel papers, they should be left behind because they were undocumented?
Well, they have to be properly profiled. Not that they should be left behind. Like I said, UK left people behind, America left people behind. But if someone is a country person, don't also forget, like I mentioned earlier, Sudan and Nigeria have come a long way. There are fourth generation Nigerians in Sudan. Now, being fourth generation is not an issue. If you are in Nigeria, you are in Nigeria. According to Nigerians who have lived in Sudan, they will tell you that those Sudanese of Nigerian descent are very proud of their descent, and they will always let you know that they are of Nigerian descent. The embassy, the Foreign Affairs Ministry, they know how to handle issues of temporary documentation for citizens that they must have profiled. So even if you don't have papers, you probably, however you found yourself in that place, if it could be established that you are in Nigeria and they profile you, you are not a terrorist, the people who do all those profiling know what they are looking for. And once you have that, some temporary travel papers could be made available for such people to be able to get out. But what I saw with a couple of nations whose evacuation I read about was that they prioritize people with papers. So let's get the people who already have it, because you have minimal profiling to do with those ones. Then we'll come back to those ones without paper who may require longer time to process.
All right, just before
you can always get temporary papers.
Yeah, we've been talking and speaking with Charles Olojede on the return of the Nigerians in Sudan back home, and we have 376 of them, at the moment in the country, and they've been given, according to reports, 100,000 naira each to return to the various homes in Nigeria. Before we leave this country, there are those who say that Nigerians are so entitled. Doesn't matter whether they're in Nigeria, residents in Nigeria, or outside Nigeria, and that's because there's this viral video of one of the persons stranded in Sudan who showed a very funny building where they're being camped at the moment, and some persons have referenced how citizens from other countries are not so entitled and the rest. Do you think, generally, what's your thoughts as regards this? Do you think Nigerians are so entitled, or don't we deserve these things?
No, I believe a nation owes it to its citizens to attend to their welfare, not just when they are in Nigeria, but even outside. And we have seen that with several nations who, when they hear that, their citizen is arrested somewhere or has been improperly treated somewhere, they go ahead to intervene in those matters. I'm not saying Nigeria doesn't do that. I still have memories of a couple of incidences. There was a young lady from, I think, Kano, who got arrested for drugs in Saudi Arabia, and it was investigated and found not to be involved and all of that. And Nigeria intervened and rescued that lady. So I know that Nigeria does it from time to time. But it's a responsibility of every nation to its own citizen. The primary nature of government includes the welfare of the people, and that welfare of the people doesn't have to be only when they are here. Everywhere they are, which is why we have embassies across where we think our people, we have a presence. Then we want somebody to be able to attend to their welfare. So I don't think it's right to say it's an entitlement mentality. I think it's a duty of government to its own citizens. And it's a war situation. Most of these citizens that we're talking about will probably not be bothered about coming to Nigeria anyway. So, which is why this matter has a humanitarian angle to it as well. So the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and government providing some sort of succor for people to be able to get back to their bases it's normal. It's something that a country should be able to do for its own people.
All right, thank you so much, Charles Olojede. We want to move on swiftly to another topic before we have to wrap up the show this morning. So the president-elect, Bola Tinubu, has rejected Rivers State Governor's request for federal project reimbursement, saying that he owed the state nothing. So Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike yesterday requested a refund of some federal projects, including roads which he reconstructed with the approval of the federal government. Now he's seeking a reimbursement, and the president-elect says, no, we do not owe you anything. When you got wind of this story, what was your initial reaction?
For me, I saw it from the perspective of bankers. It could be a costly banter, though, but it's actually from the perspective of bankers. And why did I say that? For you to do federal government roads, if you go and fix federal government roads, there must have been an interaction and understanding between you and the federal government. Right. In fact, I remember that at a point in time, federal government issued a pronouncement that states should stop doing its roads. And why did he do that at that time? It was because some states were doing roads and they were loading the invoices abnormally and calling on the federal government to come and reimburse them. So the federal government said, please, don't even touch my roads again. So So it means that in specific cases in which states they had to do federal government road, it must have been with certain understanding. So those understandings would have been captured somewhere in the relevant ministry. Maybe it's Ministry of Works or Transport, I don't know. So those things will still be relevant, irrespective of the banter that Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the Nyesom Wike might have had yesterday. If there is an understanding that, we give you an approval, it's my road, but please go ahead and fix it. I will reimburse it. Definitely the government will reimburse that particular state, and they've done it severally in the past. But it's also important. I like the part that you mentioned that, see, this road, is it not your people that this thing is affecting? So you did something for your people. You are saying that you come and pay for it. It's your people now. You know. So, but like I said, I see it as a banter, and it will not affect the substance of what will eventually happen. Because the way Ashiwaju closed that banter was to say, well, you can come and lobby me. You know, so that's a window right there that you can come and speak to me, and we can look at what you have done and you know, arrange a reimbursement for you.
And indeed, the Rivers State Governor responded with, you know, a good laugh to that particular comment. Let's talk about this relationship, what many have called an alliance, a political alliance, you know, between them. And the president-elect did give kudos to the Rivers State Governor as to his support during the elections. Few days ago, the Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike and the Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde visited the president-elect at the Defense House. What do you think we might see possibly after May 29? You know, many persons thought, okay, this was Wike at the time just you know, trying to get back at his party, the People's Democratic Party, but it looks more like a formidable alliance that is formed with the president-elect. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, you know, politics starts from self. Or at least our own brand of politics starts from self-preservation, self-interest. After those have been satisfied, then you can start talking, the interest of my party, the interest of my people. But it starts from self. What we saw with Wike through the electioneering process, to what happened to the fact that APC won Rivers State, to the new romance between him being a PDP person and the president-elect are all first about himself. The continuous relevance of a politician is most important to him than any other thing. And the way he has played his game, it is apparent that he will be relevant even in the new regime of the current president-elect, without prejudice to what the courts might still do along the line. You know, so he will be relevant, and that is most important. Is the number one thing for a politician. How he will be able to hold forth as a PDP person, I don't know. But he has remained a member. Even when they were suspending some members of the PDP, they left him alone. I don't know what
he went to court.
Why he was treated specially.
He went to the court.
Well, it's left to be seen. It's left to be seen how things will play out. But apparently, it will be relevant in this administration. You saw the way the president-elect was, praising his support yesterday. You know, so that's an appreciation. The visit was also, part of this romance that we're talking about. So obviously, there's something in the offing for him somehow.
All right.
In this new regime that is coming.
All right. Speaking of relevance, Mr. Charles, look at let's even go to Rivers politics proper. The incoming governor of let me use the word newly elected governor, the governor-elect of Rivers State, Simi Fubara, is from the PDP. The ANPP candidate for governorship, who is the former senator, had dropped his petition against the ruling party in the state, which is the PDP. We also have the APC candidate for governorship, Tonyeko, fighting seriously to get his mandates, in quotes. How do you think that these parties, these individuals, it appears that there's a string bed fellows, like they are all in the same camp now, in the Asiwaju camp. APC governorship candidate is fighting the PDP, PDP's candidate, that's the governor-elect. The other senator is also fighting initially fighting the PDP, but he has dropped his gauntlet and is ready to, sue for peace. Do you think, or how do you think the relevance is going to play out in this whole fiasco, if I may put it that way?
It's very. If you remember in that season when the election was on, Wike was very emphatic that as far as the state level election was concerned, that it is PDP. That it's when it is federal, that it is in federal that he wanted to support APC. And that was what he did. However he did it is a different story. We'll let the right authority to unravel that side and make whatever necessary conclusion and decision they want to make. But the fact remains that that was how he played it out. At the federal level, supports APC. At the state level, he has to be PDP. Is it a first time? No. We've seen that in the Southwest before, when the Southwest was dominated by AC, or ACN, as it was then, and Jonathan was contesting in 2011. The Southwest states were asked to vote at the federal level for PDP. That's why the fact that there was an ACN presidential contestant in that election. So they voted for Jonathan. Apart from Osun, Jonathan won all of those states in that season. But when it came to the gubernatorial, everybody reverted back to ACN, though there was PDP candidate contesting in all those places. So it's been done before, but what could make the particular case of Rivers complex is all the allegations of electoral malpractice, and that's what will make it complex, which will be unraveled when it comes to the court.
All right, little bit of correction there. That's the SDP governorship candidate, Magnus Abbey. That's yes.
And Abbey has been on the queue for a long time.
Absolutely, I think since this is like the third or fourth time, So, yeah. Well, we hope that now that he has dropped his guard, maybe he will find relevance in the Asiwaju's government.
It's possible. He has always been an Asiwaju person anyway. He has always been. So I guess it's a time for him. Some of these things we're talking about, you can't rule out the space of political rewards. There are also rewards for those things. So it might be a season in which that reward might come for him. Now that we're here, yeah.
Interesting. I'd like to especially thank you, political commentator Charles Olojede, for being on the program this morning and sharing your thoughts on major issues in the news. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. Have a great day.
Thanks so much. You too.
You too. Well, that's the package on the program. Many thanks indeed for being there. Of course, you can share your thoughts as we go. You can do so via Facebook or streaming live, facebook.com/law1039. And of course, you can also send in your WhatsApp messages via the phone lines right now.
Yes, 0703227738 is the number to send your contributions to. You can send it via SMS or WhatsApp, or you can send it to 0909555139. Instagram at LawFM Radio and Twitter at LawFM_radio. It's been a beautiful one right here on the LawFM Morning Show, but we need to take a recess to return, God willing, tomorrow. Do well to keep it a date with us, 9 a.m. through to 10:30 a.m. every single weekday. My name is BHS in
yeah, that's right. Yeah, you are
Felix Zoma.
That's right, that's his name. Kingsley Bass is my name. We return tomorrow. Bye for now.